Hey, Dave Molenda here, Positive Polarity Podcast. Hope things are going awesome for you. Each week, you know that I try and find these people that have a unique angle to business, a unique angle to performance. And we talk a lot about growth. And so I found somebody today that I really want to dig into from the brain perspective. Now, I have to tell you up front, I've already told her that I'm like sixth grade education. So, she's a doctor. And I said, you know what, you got to dumb this down for me because otherwise, not my listener, but for me. So I know, how to learn something. So I'm honored to be hanging out with a neuropsychologist. That's correct, isn't it? So far, I'm right?
It sure is. Yeah, you are
awesome. Now I'm going to try this. Dr. Julia. See, I knew I was going to screw it
up. Go
up.
for it. No, do it. Let's do it. Come on.
DiGangi.
I believe. You got it. You
DiGangi. See, there you go. Dr. Julia DiGangi. So now I'm not saying it anymore. I'm just going to say Dr. Julia. So welcome to the show. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today.
Thank you for hanging out with me. I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
Absolutely. So you are in the process of writing a book for Harvard Business Review, From Pain to Power, the Neuroscience of Smart Leadership in Tough Times. So I want to start with talking about leadership and it from the brain perspective, because I think that we all have a pretty good understanding of leading people. We do what we can. We're so darn busy as leaders. So I want to look at it from the brain perspective. So what have you kind of found in your research, Dr. Julia, that it would help the average entrepreneur listening today?
Yeah, such a good question. And so I think timely for the times that we're in.
Sure.
So if it's okay, let me kind of take a step back and say the way I think about my work is in sort of three broad categories. So I think about your brain, I think about your leadership, and I think about your emotional intelligence.
Okay.
So I actually, I think all of our thinking about our work evolves over time, and hopefully that evolution makes our work stronger and stronger. I used to even think there was a stronger distinction between leadership, true leadership, and emotional intelligence, but now I almost think that they are synonyms. So if you think about leadership, it's the activity of drawing on my own power, my own personal power, my own emotional power, my own strength, my own courage to lead people in uncertain times.
Okay.
If the external environment is cooperating, right? In other words, if things are just kind of easy and things are going the way they should, and there's a lot of inertia and everybody's cooperating and everybody's listening to me and everybody thinks I have a great idea and all the customers are buying, it's great. And I hope that we all have times like those, but that's not leadership.
Sure.
Right? It's just the external environment cooperating.
Okay.
So I think a lot of people these days are talking about emotional intelligence, and they're talking about mental health, and they're talking about, trauma and all these things. So I think it's amazing. But I think that we unnecessarily complicate the conversation on emotional intelligence. So, I was reading this article the other day, and it was like the 14 domains of emotional intelligence. So I'm an academic. I certainly love my diagrams and my pillars and a lot of arrows. But I think, so the question becomes really, what is the function of emotional intelligence?
Sure.
And the most powerful function of emotional intelligence is, how do I lead myself? How do I lead myself in my own moments of emotional pain? So pain is a very big word, but and I know it's it can be a shocking word, but if you think about the brain, it's not that big. It's sort of less than 3 pounds. And so it's, whether you're talking about regular stress, whether you're talking about anxiety, whether you're talking about inadequacy, whether you're talking about fear, whether you're talking about irritation, whether you're talking about rage, the circuits that give rise to those feelings, the parts of the brain that give rise to those feelings are the parts of the brain that give rise to those feelings.
Okay.
So the best definition for emotional intelligence is, how do I use my emotional power to meet my emotional pain? In other words, who do I become? Who do I become in my own moments of fear and stress and overwhelm?
Okay.
So I think until as entrepreneurs, as leaders, as partners, as citizens, can really understand who we become in our own moments of darkness, in our own moments of worry, in our own moments of inadequacy, we're never really going to be emotionally intelligent, and we're never really going to be able to lead powerfully.
Okay. So I'm hearing self-awareness is really important in this, I guess, is what I'm kind of hearing you say. Because
Mhm.
if I'm not aware of what my triggers, or I'm not aware of, some of those things from the emotional intelligence perspective, do people, if they're not aware, do they just tend to just blow right by that? Do they cause problems along the way? I mean, what happens, Dr. Julia, if you're not really, aware of what you're doing? Because I'm guessing people listening today aren't always aware. We all have blind spots, so we're not always aware of what we're doing. So what do we do in
Yeah.
that case right there?
So that's such a great question. And I think you're so right. So we absolutely have blind spots, I think, and there's no shame in that, right? I mean, I think that's
Right.
part of what it means to be human. We can't have every single thing in our awareness. But I
Right.
think a really good way, so one of the things I like to do is because emotions, especially painful emotions, are inherently confusing. They make us feel very chaotic and disoriented. So I like to really simplify things for people. So a great way to understand our blind spots is to say, what is the one thing, or the top 5 things that I really love to avoid? In other words, like, what are the conversations I'm avoiding having because they make me uncomfortable? Who are the people that I just like, I really hope I don't see them today because, like, ugh, man, I know if I see you today, I'm really going to get frustrated. What are the things that if I read, I know it's going to kind of send me into a tizzy? You see how in those moments of pain, what's a very reflexive kind of response of the biology, a reflexive response of the brain is to say, hey, you know what, that doesn't feel good to you, so let's just avoid it.
Right.
But the problem with avoidance is, if you really think about what it's doing, it's at best, allowing you to simply maintain your leadership energy or your leadership power.
Okay.
But until I'm able to, like, learn to work the muscle of courage and have tough conversations, until I'm willing to work the muscle of inclusion, right? Because here's the thing about it, like inclusion, transparency, empathy. I don't, it's, I'm delighted to include people.
Sure.
You just got to agree with me.
Yeah, exactly.
You just got to make it easy for me, right? I love being honest. I love being honest. I love being transparent. Just as long as I'm positive, you won't use that information to harm me.
Sure.
You
Sure.
see what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
all these
no.
virtues, I love being courageous. I love it. I love it. It's such a virtue. It's so gorgeous. It's just when I'm courageous, don't you come after me.
Right.
Don't you humiliate me. Don't you embarrass me. Don't you use that to then punish me. So do you
Sure.
see how at every moment we want to become this greater expression of what we kind of hold inside? And I think people who are called to be entrepreneurs already have this inner knowing. They already have this inner energy where they're like, I know I was built for this. I know I was built to lead. I know I was built for visions. I know I have great ideas. I'm really creative. I'm good with people. So I really want to help people unleash that. And the only thing that really gets in the way are these uncomfortable and painful sensations, like the,
Mm.
ooh, I don't know, maybe this could hurt. So if we can just learn to harness that better, it's like a whole new world gets opened up for people.
So so I'm just curious. I'd like to get clarification on this because I think there's a difference between avoidance and a blind spot. I mean, there's people that know something about themselves but don't care. Too bad if you don't like it, look the other way, so to speak. But then there's people that really don't know that they have that, whatever that is. So,
Mhm.
I guess I'm seeing a difference there. How do you deal with people, in that situation that are like avoiding it? They know it, but they don't care, or their egos won't let them, deal with it. Because that's a different group to me than the people that truly don't know they have this particular blind spot, whatever it is.
So great point. I We can kind of come back to this, and because I would sort of say, like, I think there's levels of knowing. There's levels of consciousness of our knowing, right?
Okay.
So, but let's just go to your question right there, which is like, how do you deal with people? So is your question like, how do you deal with people who do not want to change?
Yeah, basically.
Okay, so you don't.
Okay.
You don't.
Simple.
This is what I mean by the power of the self, what I mean by emotional power. So we've all heard this, you can bring the horse to water, but you can't make a horse drink. So the whole idea that you could ever make anyone else feel something, believe something, do something, say something, it creates so much dysfunction and pain in our businesses, in our relationships. Now, I actually want to go deeper here because I think so I think sometimes this can feel frustrating to people, like, oh my God, well, if I can't, I'm trying so hard to entice, I'm trying so hard to motivate, I'm trying so hard to inspire my team, my customers, and what's really, I think, useful and powerful about the conversation we're having is because the brain is the brain. Right. This applies in our businesses, it applies in our homes, it applies how we show up on social media. So I actually think this is an incredibly hopeful story. And let me explain why. So I work with a lot of leadership teams. And I would say the central question I get asked is, how can I engage my employees? How can I motivate my employees? How can I inspire my employees? Sure. So there's all of these mechanisms, right? So you have like a lot of reward systems now. Maybe you're giving Starbucks gift cards. Maybe you're giving, a lot of praise. Maybe you're offering lots of expressions of gratitude. And those things are fine. And in a way, they're wonderful if they're used to the appropriate degree. But you can never, if you really get down to the basics of human behavior, you can never inspire another person. Okay. You can never motivate another person. What happens in that trend, because I bet you there's listeners being like, no, I've been inspired by people before. That's not actually what's happening if you think about it. The number one thing that people on this planet want is they want to be reminded of their own power, Dave. Okay. So the most powerful leaders are the ones who remind us of our power. In other words, the leaders that really light us up, they really light our souls on fire, they're already inspired. And we see their inspiration, and we are energetic beings. And I don't just mean this metaphysically. I mean that the brain is actually an electrical machine. So we feel the energy of their inspiration, and it ignites our own energy of inspiration. We feel the energy of their motivation. Like we can tell they're going to the top of the mountain, and we're like, oh man, they ain't waiting for anybody. Like, I want to go with them. Sure. We feel the genuine empathy of their compassion. We feel the genuine empathy of their engagement in their own work. So what I always, and this is very counterintuitive, and I'm happy to sort of talk about, this all for all of us started in childhood, because the foundation of our brains and how we relate to other people in the world was all poured in childhood. But it's like, if I just do enough for you, give enough for you, ask you enough questions, maybe then you'll be engaged, or maybe then you'll like me, or maybe then you'll like your job. Your job as a leader is not to inspire anyone. Your job as a leader is two things: to inspire yourself, and then trust in other people and their power. Trust yourself and your power. In other words, trust that your inspiration is genuinely enough to set other people on fire.
So does that mean if I am not if I'm not inspired, it's really hard for me to inspire other people, is what I'm hearing.
100%. 100%. Yes.
So the fake it till you make it thing, I've always had a challenge. I've always struggled with that, just because I don't feel like I want to fake anything, because people say fake it till you make it. You hear that on occasion. So I'm just curious if I'm not an inspired leader right now, we have to work on inspiring ourselves before we can inspire others. Is there any simple ways that we can work on inspiring ourselves that you've found?
I am smiling because I was just yesterday walking down the street thinking about the phrase "fake it till you make it." So
I was in your brain. I was right behind you.
Yeah, we were the energies, like we were transacting, I suppose.
Yep.
So I actually think that "fake it till you make it" is a beautiful phrase. It comes out of AA, it comes out of the addiction. So my background, most fundamentally, I'm a trauma and addictions expert. So,
Okay.
I've done a lot of research in sort of 12-step programs like AA. In any case, fake
Sure.
it till you make it. So let me say this. I believe that leadership is really, as you can tell, I think a lot about emotions, and emotions are quite literally energies,
Okay.
right? They're electrochemical transmissions.
Okay.
So I think we become so much more powerful leaders when we really tap in, not just to what we are doing, not just to what we're this task, did I make this statement, did I post this thing, did I deliver this PowerPoint, not just what we're doing. Not to say that's not important, because of course it is. But the more powerful question is, what is the energy of who I am being? Okay, so let's go back to this thing about fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
If I have to be inauthentic, right? Like the energy of what imagine I'm like, this job sucks. I don't want to be here.
Yep.
And I'm just counting down my days. And if it's a lie, it's never going to work. I'm certainly not going to fool myself, and I'm not going to fool anybody else in the room. So fake it till you make it. If it's done in the energy of inauthenticity, it can't work.
Okay.
Because the truth really will set us free, right? The energy that's in us is the energy that's in us. It's like gravity makes things fall down. No matter how much we want gravity to make things fall up, it's not going to do that.
Right.
But fake it till you make it. If you say, what is the edge of my inspiration today? What is the edge of my authenticity today? So what if I went into a conversation with a colleague? What if I went on social media? What if I just had a conversation with myself and I was like, the edge of my authenticity today is that I'm struggling a little bit. But in my struggle, I believe that I'm really clarifying some things. I'm clarifying what I don't like. And as I learn what I don't like, I can start to learn what I do like. I'm really getting a lot of insight into what things I want to remove from my life and what things I want more of in my life. So I come to this edge of what is the truth? What is the most expansive truth? But it's still true. We get into trouble if I'm really sad and I'm supposed to pretend to be happy. No.
Yep.
If I'm really sad, is there something I'm grateful about? If I'm really sad, is there something I'm hopeful about?
Okay.
You can't lie about the truth of that's like the bedrock of all pathology, right?
Yeah. And I think I wrote down fake equals inauthentic. So when I think of fake, I think of the inauthentic, like you said. So I'm thinking fake it till you make it is be fake, be inauthentic, and then something eventually happens. And I just don't see it happening positive. I like that you're separating the fake word, so to speak, into two different pieces. Because I'm assuming there's plenty of times we don't want to go to the gym, but we go, and I'm fake, I'm smiling. I don't want to be here, but I'm here. Right. So 100%. I guess, that to me is, and so I appreciate you separating those two pieces. Can
I say one other thing that I think could really help people too? So there's this holy triad of our lives as leaders, and even more fundamentally as human beings. And I want you to think of it like a three-legged table. We have our thoughts, we have our feelings, and we have our behaviors. Thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, right? So when people come to see me, so I do a lot of leadership mentorship, and I also do a lot of clinical work. So I treat people and couples and families. So I sort of work the gamut of human behavior. The number one reason people come to see me is because they don't feel particularly empowered. In other words, they're in a lot of pain.
Okay.
So what they're really saying is fix my emotions, fix the emotions on my team, fix the emotions in my business, fix the emotions in my marriage, fix the emotions. I'm in a lot of pain.
Yep.
Now, what's such an interesting like paradox or twist of life is if we felt great all the time, it wouldn't matter what was happening to us, right? Like, in other words, like, things only become a problem when we feel bad. I think, that's pretty self-evident. But so in other words, emotions, I think, are our human superpower. But
Okay.
of that three-legged table, emotions we cannot access directly. They're the only one of the three we cannot access directly. This is why the fake it till you make it actually is powerful. And there's a lot of neuroscientific evidence to show that these kinds of things work.
Okay.
So if I say to you, hey, Dave, I want you to think about a pink elephant, you can think about a pink elephant. If I say, hey, Dave, can you just jump on one foot really quick? You could be like, I don't really want to, but you could do it.
Sure.
If I say real quick, just feel joy, just joy right now. You couldn't do it. Feel
Sure.
sorrow, feel anxious. You
Sure.
can't do it.
Gotcha.
We can only start to change the emotional experience. We can only start to change the emotional energies once we come through the portal of thinking and behaving.
Okay.
So if I'm feeling down, if I'm feeling uninspired, I mean, you can pray for a miracle, and I do believe miracles exist, but
Sure.
is it more like, to your point, like, is it better to just kind of drag myself to the gym, even if that's not true? It's not true to the energy I'm feeling, because I'm feeling kind of down. I'm feeling kind of sluggish. I don't really want to go.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, totally. In that, I mean, I'd like that there's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. I mean, it simplifies that because those are words that we, non-neuropsychologists use every day. So,
Yep.
That fact that you're using them it's awesome. I'm feeling, better because I am able to stay with you on this. And that's what I think is really important. I don't want to lose people. I love to find nuggets of information here. And I think there's some really good ones here in that, the thoughts and the feelings and the behaviors they all kind of operate independent,
Yep.
but they all kind of are reliant on each other, like you said.
Yeah.
And
Great point.
And I appreciate that piece. I want to try and tie this into the EQ part, the emotional intelligence part, because, there's a lot of research done that I've seen, about how the people with high EQ make more money. The people with high EQ have more satisfaction in their life. They get more accomplished. I mean, there's a lot of positive pieces to emotional intelligence and having that high EQ, I guess is the best way to say it. I wanted to make sure, number one, do you agree with that research that's out there in that respect? I wanted to start there.
It sounds like a simple question. It's a little bit more complex, because what really is EQ, right? So I think, what are the ways I'm emotionally intelligent? So one way, right, is it could be like, I'm very charismatic. So I'm a very charismatic leader. I'm a great storyteller. But maybe you could imagine that there's someone who could have high EQ in terms of social skills, but then maybe at the same time, like, I don't feel good about myself.
Sure.
Right? Like, I feel like I always got to be putting on a show, and I always got to be the life of the party, and I always got to be like really high energy and high vibe and super positive. And then that actually exhausts me. I was just doing some sessions today earlier before our call, and the person was basically saying, like, for so many years in my life, I always had to be like the super social one, and like seem like I was a lot of fun, and seem like I was really interesting. And it depleted me, because going back to our earlier conversation about authenticity, it didn't feel authentic.
Yeah.
So I absolutely believe that, I'll tell you. So I really, again, think that the most powerful function of EQ is in our own moments of distress, when we are feeling sad, when we're feeling lonely, when we're feeling down, when we're feeling hopeless, when we're feeling exhausted. Can we take care of ourselves in our own pain?
Yeah.
Because if I can take care of myself there, then everything any human being actually wants, freedom, peace, connection, self-expression, I can access those things.
Sure.
So there's plenty of people who make a lot of money and aren't happy, right? So I think we're really driving after is like these emotionally powerful experiences. Like I was saying, like feeling free, feeling peaceful, feeling safe.
Yeah. Well, and I think, I don't know, obviously you went to spend a million years in school to learn all this stuff. For somebody that's the average person on the street, I don't recall learning how to cope with a hopeless feeling that would come over me. I mean, I wrote down hopeless because that's like the epitome of, that's like the worst word I think that I know. If you don't have hope, so if you are feeling that, you have to make a choice of either going down that road and continuing to feel it or trying to combat that. That's a really hard journey. And quite frankly, as we see in today's world, it's not a lot of people are having success at it. I mean, if the market's down, somebody's having a bad day, if, this is going on, if there's always something negative going on. So how in the world do we use our emotional intelligence? We all have some of it, maybe some people have more than others. I'm trying to understand, how do you use emotional intelligence to get you through those situations?
So first of all, I thought your point was so spot on. And like what you said about us not being taught this stuff, and I don't think it's anyone's fault, because the generations before us, I really believe, 99.9% of parents did the best they could with what they had. Does that mean they did A+? No. But and I think what is powerful is you can see I've been doing this work now for 20 years. The conversation about mental health is wildly different than it, right? Sure. So we're seeing the evolution. Okay. So let me explain this. There is absolutely pain that is done to us. This is what trauma is, right? So I'm in a war, someone attacks me. Okay. So absolutely things can be done to us, but a massive amount of our pain, a massive amount of our hopelessness, our inadequacy, our sadness, our stress comes when we divide ourselves from ourselves.
Okay.
Let me explain what I mean by this. We are the perpetrators of pain in our own life. Sure. When, for example, let's say I really want to express myself. I really want to you have this amazing podcast, right? So but let's say I wanted to create a podcast too, but I'm like, no, people think it's stupid. Nobody will listen. I'm just going to embarrass myself.
Sure.
I made the decision to keep my mouth shut. I had this impulse for self-expression. I had this impulse for connection, and I denied that to myself. Let me give you another example. How many people are freaking exhausted? They're like, their body is screaming at them, like, I'm exhausted. I just need rest. I need rejuvenation. I need play. So all these things are necessary for hope, right? What do? I overwork. So I know that I'm exhausted, and my response is it to take care of myself? Is it to nurture no, it's to do the other. And then who is the dangerous person in the room?
Sure.
In that moment, I know, maybe not consciously, but the body and the brain know I am the one who's perpetrating against myself. Right. There's another one that's really going to resonate. How many people are like, oh man, I really want to say no. I'm really I don't want to do one more thing. I don't want to go to the party. I don't want to take on another project. I'm going to say no.
Yeah.
Moment of truth comes. Yeah, sure. I'll do it. Yeah. I'll be there. Yeah.
Yep.
I did that to myself. It is hopeless. If I'm saying, Julia, please help me. And then when the moment of truth comes, I betray myself.
Right.
Why wouldn't I be hopeless?
Yep. Wow. That is so true. Those are three perfect examples. And the funny thing is, Dr. Julia, is that the podcast comments that you made were exactly, I'm like, it's kind of like when I wrote my book. I'm like, oh my gosh, who's going to read my book? And then it's the podcast. Like, who's going to listen, and you have to battle those pieces, because I'm sure in my life, there were plenty of times where I had that battle and I lost. And I lost means I didn't do the project. I didn't move forward with that idea because, that negativity, that hopelessness overcame the, working my way through it. And fortunately, as I get older, I realize that there's resistance to almost everything, So, but I just think about people that are hopeless or addicted to work, or, even the people that are just existing. There's probably somebody listening right now that you're just existing. You're not thriving. You're not flourishing. You're not necessarily in the hopeless group, but you show up to work, you work your 50 weeks, you take your 2 weeks of vacation, you probably complain about how busy the vacation is. I mean, there's just, there's that grind. And that's where I'm trying to understand your work there for those people, because I can see hopelessness, there's ways around that, but the kind of the middle ground where probably most of us are, or we get tempted to be. Do you have any feedback for those people as we start to land the plane today? Do you have any feedback for those people listening?
I do. Yeah. And again, I think I love what you said about this really being kind of a lifelong journey. Like we're all kind of like confronting this resistance. And I think there are parts of us, right? So I want to say one thing, and I'll answer that second question more directly, because I think it's all going to kind of tie together.
Sure.
You know how people will say, kind of in like casual conversations, like, oh, there's a part of me that wants to go, and there's a part of me that doesn't.
Yeah.
Or like, there's a part of me that wants to do it, but there's a part of me that doesn't.
Sure.
Like we're kind of giving words to something that's very like energetic and oftentimes unconscious.
Yeah.
But what's really powerful is then we ask ourselves this question, is like, well, what part of me is driving the machine right now?
Sure. Yep.
So I love what you said about writing the book. Like, who's going to want to, like, because what's so crazy, Dave, is like, I work with some of the most powerful leaders on the planet, and like, everyone is thinking the same thing. It's never good enough.
Yep.
They're not smart enough. They're the dumbest one in the room. It's just a moment of time before everybody finds out and the jig is up and they're on the street. You know what I mean? So it's like, so, but there's a part of them that knows they're successful and disciplined. And so it's like, this is such a powerful question.
Yep.
I'm all about reconnecting people to their powers. Like, what part of me is speaking right now?
Right.
What part of me is driving the machine? Is it the part that's like, because it's a myth. It is a myth to think that there's going to be a day when it all clears up and it's just sunny skies.
Wait a minute. Now you just ruined it for everybody.
I know. I'm sorry. But like, real talk. And also, I think when we start to understand that we live a non-dualistic life, meaning things are both hard and easy.
Sure.
There is joy and sorrow. It's not like, and they come at the same time.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's like we have to say like, oh, it's not when, because people always talk to me about readiness. Oh God, I really want to start this business. I'm just not ready yet. I just got to think a little bit more. I just got to take a few more classes. I just really got to get my website up to date. I just got to really like get a few more dollars in the bank. It's like you can feel I'm standing at the edge of the cliff, and you just want to be like, just trust, like you're down in the water and you're like, just jump. And they're like, but is it cold? And you're like, it's cold for 1 second, but just jump, And they're like, I don't know. But like, so it's like, you have to kind of get in touch with what part of you is driving.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. I wrote down the question of which power will win. So when you're standing there in that situation, and this might be really for somebody listening right now, Dr. Julie, they might be on that precipice where they're standing there and they are all geared up to jump in, and something's just holding them back. Fear, hopeless, whatever it is, whatever emotion. So I just want to encourage you not necessarily to jump in, look at it from that different perspective, because our goal isn't to get you to jump in to quit your job and strand your family. That's not our goal. Our goal is to find out how you can do it effectively. And, maybe it's going to take 2 more issues of whatever you got to work through. But we probably could see ourselves, stalling our whole entire life. So somewhere there's that balance there. But the question is really which power will win. And I think, is it the positive side? Is it the negative side? I think that's really a great comment there. So a couple questions that I'm going to let you go, because I know you got tons going in your life. So thank you again so much for hanging out with us. What would your tip of the week be for somebody listening right now, whether it's something that we covered or something that we haven't? But what would your tip of the week be for a listener today, Dr. Julia?
Great question. And this will allow me to even kind of touch a little bit deeper on it. You said, what if someone feels like they're just kind of like going through the motions? I almost heard you say like they might feel like this isn't really the life I signed up for. Like I thought this. So here's my tip. It's quite counterintuitive. Most of us think we always need to avoid our pain, right? Like, oh, that makes me anxious, don't do it. Oh, that makes me afraid, don't do it. That makes me worried, get away from it.
Sure.
Can you start to see profound power in your pain? So in other words, if you feel, you keep using the term hopeless, Dave, so I'll use that one. So if you're feeling hopeless or low or just like, you like wake up in the morning and you're like, is this all there is? You got to ask yourself a really important question. It's like, do you think you're supposed to feel that way? And if the answer is like, it's just going to be like this from here until kingdom come, that's okay. People can choose whatever they want. Sure. Or there is another way to say, the reason I feel this way, my pain of the hopelessness and the low and the sadness and the blah, is telling me that what I'm doing in my life is not really elevating me to my higher purpose. Because do I believe that I should have access, not 100% of the time, but I should have access to vitality and vibrancy and connection and pleasure and peace and resilience? And if the answer is yes, then that pain, if we hold it the right way, in other words, if we kind of have conversations like you and I are having and really start to see the power in the pain, that pain is kind of a signal. It's a wholly neurobiological signal that, the reason I feel low is because I shouldn't continue to live my life like this. I need to make a change on the roadmap. So the tip is, your pain isn't just here to torment you. It's not just here to make you miserable. It's not just here to drive you into the ground. It's here to set you free. You see what I'm saying? So if you're feeling like, oh gosh, I really want to express myself, but you're not expressing yourself, there's going to be pain. If you feel like you really want to play, but you're overworking, there's going to be pain. So if we start to understand our pain as a way to access our power, it makes our lives and our leadership so much better.
Wow, that's awesome. And that's really deep, so I'm contemplating, I'm trying to apply it to my own life. So you're probably going to have to listen to this again. You're probably going to have to reach out probably and talk to Dr. Julia. If somebody wants to learn more about this, if this has sparked something in them and they want to make a connection with you, what's the best way for people to do that?
So first of all, I love connection. So I love these conversations. I could talk about these conversations for 24 hours a day. So the easiest way to find me is I'm on LinkedIn. I'm at Dr. Julia DiGangi, Facebook, Dr. Julia DiGangi, and Instagram, Dr. Julia DiGangi. And I post a lot of videos and I have a lot of conversations like these. So I'd love to see people's questions and make a real connection.
Awesome. That is so cool. Well, again, to be sensitive to your time, I know you got tons of people waiting to have you continue to change.
By tons of people, do you mean like the 2 tiny wild animals that people keep insisting are my children?
Oh, wait a minute. Well, so here now the truth comes out. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Well, what you have 2 dogs, cats? What do you got?
No, they're people. They're people. They just act like wild animals. I got 2 little kids. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I hope their names aren't Wild and Animal, because that would be kind of awkward. But
No.
well, thank you so much. And again, if you're listening, I just want to encourage you, if there's something here that kind of, is fluttering inside, there's something in you that sparked here a little bit of encouragement, rather than just jump into your next task. I just want to encourage you, go to on the bottom of the show notes, click on how to get in contact with Dr. Julia, because that's why she's here. That's why we do these each week, is to make little course corrections in our life, to be able to, continue to build on education each week. And again, there's a ton of stuff here. And I just really appreciate what you've shared today. And I can't wait to read your book. And I hope that that book makes as much of an impact on people as your practice has to date. So again, thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Thank you, Dave. I really appreciate it.